Hello everyone, great to see you again. And this time I'm not alone, as you can see, as I've got a guest here. In this series we're going to be interviewing cryptocurrency projects and the people behind the project in itself. We are going to discuss what has brought them into the blockchain space and also what value they can bring towards the cryptocurrency markets. Before we start, I'd like to say that we are not shilling projects and I do not give financial advice in this channel or during this interview. So that I have to say beforehand. That said, today I'm joined by Jack O'Halloran. I hope I'm saying it the right way. He's the co-founder and CEO of SKALE Network. Jack, welcome. It's great to have you here as our first guest. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Hey, it's a pleasure to be here. Excited to talk about Scale, and hopefully everyone will find this informative.
Well, before we start, we're going to discuss a little bit about you, as I want to know you, my listeners want to know you as well. What is your background and since when did you get in touch with blockchain in general?
Yeah, so I think one thing that does make the Scale core team a little unique is that we're almost all of us primarily enterprise software and tech startup people. So we've been doing startups for a long time. I started in mobile and cryptography, security software back in 2005, a company called Good Technology. It was acquired by Motorola for about 500 million. And then I started a company, actually a software company building a digital currency in 2008. And enterprises could pay for items with this currency inside the enterprise. And then you created the scarcity around resources that people would just fight for. And so anyway, after the 2008 crisis happened, we actually took that core technology and spun that company into, there's a lot of deep analytic software that was a part of that. And we built the #1 machine learning AI platform for pharmaceutical and biotech all over the world. So almost every pharma rep and biotech rep in the world uses this software, and their companies do, and it helps guide all the marketing and commercial efforts for detailing healthcare information to doctors for almost every category of pharmaceutical in the world. So did that for like 9 years, and then ended up got really into Bitcoin in 2013. But I had my own company, so I couldn't leave and do something in the crypto space. But also, I have to say, I didn't really understand it as much, and Ethereum wasn't a thing yet. And once Ethereum launched, for me, it was a no-brainer. My next company I started, I was going to do it in the space. And Stan, my co-founder, has a PhD in physics from Max Planck Institute in Germany. He was at Los Alamos National Laboratory doing physics research, Stanford doing physics research, and then he was also getting a computer science master's at Stanford when he was doing his physics research, and then ended up being one of the physicists hired to build a Java virtual machine. And then he joined Dan Bonnet, who's a famous cryptographer at a cryptography startup in 1999, and he then started I think he ran a crypto lab, a NIST lab for 7 years, and started a few other tech companies that were acquired, and then the whole team, real deep Silicon Valley experience. So we approach crypto in a way that we think of this first and foremost. This is a product we're trying to help people use to solve a problem. And you know what? You need a token as a currency to pay for that service and to get paid for running the service. But for us, it's meaningless unless we can create something that really changes people's lives and has an impact as a piece of software. So that was our approach, and that's my background. And yeah, been working on Scale since 2017, so 3 years now.
Well, we'll get into Scale at some point in this conversation. I mean, that's why we are here, right? But first, you've been in this market for a very long time. Do you believe that Bitcoin and Ethereum will change our financial system and maybe even our society? I mean, it started in 2008 after the last crisis, right?
Yeah, it's funny. For a long time, I would send through. I had all these emails I was sending my friends in 2013, 2014, like, Bitcoin's going to change the world. And like, oh, you're crazy. And then it went up to like $500. They're like, oh, it's too expensive. And 1,000, it's too expensive. And the reality is I think I'm a huge believer in both Bitcoin and Ethereum. And just like people who and there's a lot of people here that are thinking about this as in terms of trading, but you look at entities, you look at Oracle, you look at Salesforce, you look at VMware, you look at SAP, Okta, you look at these major technology companies, it's not like only one can exist because they all fill different holes. And a mature marketplace has a lot of holes to fill. And so I think this whole Bitcoin or Ethereum thing is actually doesn't do any of us any favors. Like they're both highly valuable. And I think they have different holes they fill and different needs. So I do think the world is transforming. And I think the way money reserves is going to change dramatically through Bitcoin and the way we think of money. And I think Ethereum is going to change the way businesses operate and the way we run and think about profit sharing and governance of businesses. And I think it's going to have a dramatic change in the next 10 years. And again, we're at this stage where people are like, oh, like I'm too late. Like we're really just getting started. There's a lot of speculation, but the actual real impact's going to start, ticking up dramatically.
Well, I think that's more the way that I'm approaching the markets. Is what I see right now is that big guys and institutions are actually accepting Bitcoin and Ethereum, and that's one of the main benefits we actually have to get into a maturing market. We have to have that adoption. We have to have that regulation in order to get there where we want to be. Otherwise, we won't get there. But as you have been long in this market for now, why Scale? What did pull the trigger for you to join Scale after being with cryptocurrency since 2008 or even after that? Why Scale?
Yeah, so I was, and I'm one of the co-founders. I'm the CEO of Scale Labs and a co-founder of Scale with Konstantin Kladko, my co-founder, who's our CTO. And what I was actually trying to start an application, and I saw all these amazing areas where, wow, I could disrupt these middlemen environments by using, a token and community governance and profit sharing to just go blow up these middlemen heavy environments. And, but I kept running into issues of like, well, it's not feasible yet. It's not fast enough. It's not, the costs are too high. It's not easy enough for end users to access and get like fiat on ramp so we didn't have these API based wallets. We didn't have, things like Scale yet. It was just Ethereum and MetaMask. And the reality is that doesn't bode well to getting hundreds of millions of users or even millions of users a day. And so I was running these issues, and then a couple of VCs that are really well known around the world and in Silicon Valley, Floodgate, Insignia, Mike Maples, Rick Thompson, Sunny Dillon, they knew I was working on starting something in crypto, and same thing with Stan. And they had funded Stan's prior company, and they're like, hey, you guys should meet. And we got together, and Stan had like 5 different dApps he wanted to start. And I met them. I was like, Stan, why do you think you can start all of these? And he's like, oh, well, here, I'm going to build the software. And he's a real visionary. He had designed what Scale is. And then we talked about it, like Stan, let's build Scale. Let's build this. Like we both know enterprise software, middleware. And so we designed something to solve our problems that then ended up being like, a piece of infrastructure and middleware that then could be sold to other parties. And so that's how Scale started.
And if we are now discussing Scale and probably just a short elevator pitch, what is Scale? What are you trying to achieve? Because I for sure know what Scale is, but the majority of the people probably won't understand what Scale tries to achieve.
I'm gonna give the big end goal vision, and then I'll work backwards into some more detail. Okay. So our goal is someday all the Ubers and Lyft and Facebook and Google and all the games we play, the financial tools that require computation, all of these things are going to live in this Web3 world and DeFi world. Mm-hmm. And what Scale wants to do, Scale wants to be the cloud that runs that, the decentralized cloud. And so you could think of Scale as being almost like an Amazon EC2 for computation, what Amazon AWS with EC2 and storage combined with are for the centralized world. Scale wants to do that, be that backbone for the decentralized world. And the Scale network can just keep growing and growing and growing. The economics help the network always grow. And we could have 100,000 servers or 1 million servers. And right now there's 150, okay? So the goal is to grow the network to run essentially the backend database for the next internet. and the next financial rails. So the first starting point, and by the way, this all happens in conjunction with the Ethereum network. Scale's built on Ethereum. It helps run Ethereum. And Ethereum then, as a foundational base layer, is this security layer to, have this like global rectifying settlement layer. And then Scale is where all the smart contracts and execution happens. And each Scale chain, each Scale blockchain can talk to each Scale blockchain. Each Scale blockchain can talk to Ethereum. And so what we do initially is anyone who launches an application on Ethereum, you just can connect it to Scale and make your Ethereum application run faster. Over time, a lot of these projects and Ethereum applications will start bringing their front end onto Scale. They'll start adding other components into Scale, and Scale becomes this full package that does more than just execute transactions fast and at low cost. It actually gives a full decentralized cloud experience. And so short term, Scale is going to just purely make Ethereum faster, less expensive for dApps. Long term, it's going to do a lot more.
Well, nice. That's a good explanation, I think. And you've been mentioning Ethereum and Scale and Ethereum are cooperating with each other, but we've just witnessed that ETH2 Phase O was launched. What are the implications at this point for that launch, for the market? And the upgrade for Ethereum towards 2.0 is focused on that scalability issue, right?
Yeah, so scalability, though, I think this is really important to translate to people who, if you're not an engineer, you're not digging into the code, I'm going to try to translate like what ETH2 is trying to do and what Scale is trying to do, okay? Because they're actually highly complementary. And you hear, oh, scaling and scaling. Well, it's actually far more sophisticated. And so what Ethereum does, Ethereum right now has one blockchain. What they're going to do is they have this base blockchain that really does staking instead of like a proof of work. It does proof of stake. That means the nodes store Ethereum. And by storing the Ethereum, you put it at risk, you stake it, and then you get basically paid out, to run an Ethereum node or to put collateral in an Ethereum node. And then there's going to be 32 versions of Ethereum that run vertically on that. And each one, in a way, is its own blockchain. And that's ETH2. ETH2 is, a base blockchain and then 32 smaller blockchains. And it's in simplistic terms. Mm-hmm. And then you have 32, and you can kind of spread the action out across them. And then instead of one getting all jammed up, you just get 32 of these things going. And then there's some other improvements. And, Ethereum just gets faster as a whole. But what happens is people are still sharing this backend database. And still, though, you're talking like, 100, like 60 to 100 transactions a second, not, thousands. Okay. And so what Scale does, Scale gives, let's say we have a game, and the game says, hey, I'm going to build on Ethereum, and they go build on Ethereum ETH2. And then what happens is, let's say this other application is really successful. There's still these gas fees and things are slower because they're all in a shared backend database. What Scale does, it gives this game its own version of Ethereum that's really fast, that can connect back to the big version of Ethereum. And the cool thing about Scale is, let's say there's 1,000 nodes. There's a random assignment where at any given time, 16 of those nodes work for you and your game. And they're rotated. And each one right now has about $2.5 million of stake on it. And so there's a lot of collateral. And so and so you get this pooled security model, but you get your own resource. So in the current world, Gmail, guess what? They have their own database. Mm-hmm. Twitter, their own database. And imagine if like something trended on Twitter and it made your email slower or more expensive. It just doesn't happen. So what we want to bring is an application-specific blockchain architecture to the world. And this is a model that you'll see Scale's doing this. And we've been planning to do this since 2017. You see, I think Polkadot, Cosmos, Avalanche, and others are also trying to give application-specific blockchains, mm-hmm. which is, I think a architectural structure of the future that for Scale in particular, gels really smoothly into the Ethereum mainnet, ETH2 and ETH1.
Well, as we are discussing the second layer solution that you're trying to achieve and be compatible with ETH1 and 2, in what way are you different from your competitors? As there's different blockchains trying to achieve what you're trying to achieve, however, you're different than, for instance, OMG or Matic or Raiden. In
Yep.
what way is there a difference between you as projects?
Yeah, so you can think of Scale as as really a blockchain solution, okay? And so Scale is a blockchain in the same sense that Polkadot or these other big networks produce blockchains. Scale does the same thing. The difference with Scale is that the Ethereum mainnet, there's all these smart contracts on the mainnet, and you can almost think of them as they're like managers, and they orchestrate the network, they administer the network, and they say, hey, okay, a DeFi application wants Scale nodes, and then they all say, okay, these nodes go to work on this for this DeFi application. Oh, a game's there. Okay, these nodes go work for the game. And what they do is they run the Scale network, and then, hey, we need to pay. That gets paid through Ethereum. We need to pay the validators. That goes from the dApps then out to the Ethereum validators. And there's inflation in the Scale network. That happens on the Ethereum mainnet. Then it gets paid out into the Scale network. So Scale is actually like Polkadot, but it's built into Ethereum also. And so I would say, I think of Scale, and you look at these, these big blockchain, these layer, pure layer ones like Near, like Solana, like Polkadot, and they're trying to compete for business with Ethereum. And then on Ethereum, you have these pure layer twos, is what I'll call them. And these pure layer twos, what they try to do, they try to bring not a blockchain solution, but they have a ledger that runs, and then they have one server that acts as a kind of a judge. And they use mathematical proofs to say, hey, our judge is always right. And if anything's off, then the judge is going to call it. But the thing is, so they have centralization issues because you have to trust one computer to run really enterprise software. And so if that judge goes bad or gets hacked, well, then they have these timeout periods so that end users have like 3 or 7 days or something to say, hey, you stole my money, and they can get their money back. So you take the onus off of the blockchain, you put it to the end user and a central node. That's what people try to do with Plasma and rollups and these other techniques, and so if you look at state channels, Plasma and rollups, none of these are blockchains, right? They're using other cryptographic techniques that don't involve game theory and coordination of human effort. And Scale is a blockchain. And so the other piece is some of these, other systems have, that have like Plasma built in or these other mechanisms, somebody has to run that server. And so they have these tokens, but in a way it's like a centralized company still. It's not really decentralized, or they just sell, a monthly subscription. But then if they're a venture-backed company, a private company, and imagine if you're, one of the biggest DeFi applications, and Microsoft comes in and buys your layer 2 provider, and then Microsoft runs your layer 2 in your DeFi project. That's like, not that enticing. So so there's different trade-offs for different techniques, but Scale is optimized to help user experience so that it's really easy to use the layer 2. It's optimized to be decentralized so that these servers are run by anybody in the world. It's an open network, and it's a blockchain. And third, there's capital efficiency. There's not these timeouts where the onus is on the end user, that you're running a single piece of software. You're trusting the Scale network, who frankly are the same validators that are running ETH2. It's like almost all the same validators that run Scale, ETH2, they run Near, they run Celo, they run Solana, they run, all of these top proof of stake, all the top proof of stake blockchains are kind of being run by the same, 20 to 50 top validator entities.
Cool. Okay. And how far are you now? You just discussed that you have started Scale in 2017. You've got a shirt on in which you're saying the mainnet launch.
Yeah.
you've gone from the inception towards the mainnet, and what did it take to move a project from that starting point to where you are right now? Because having a vision, having an idea is chapter 0, and then fulfilling that vision or going ahead with that vision to make an actual project is the second step. How did it go since inception?
Yeah, so one of the decisions we made is we were not going to have the token be launched until the network was up and running and functioning and the network was decentralized. Okay, so right now, the Scale core team gave away all the code. It's all open source. It's the foundation in Liechtenstein, is in charge of all the treasury and the foundation assets and help do like the exchange listings and whatnot. But it's a community-run project now, so that was really critical for us to get to a point before the token was listed that the network functioned. And so in October or September, 4,000 people bought Scale tokens in a public sale through consensus, and then they had to stake the tokens in order to be able to claim them. And so I think 95% of the people executed on it. 5% now are executing who didn't get it done, but the majority of them staked and then they got tokens. And what happened is they're staking and then the network's functioning and it's running, it's monitoring, all the nodes are working. There's 150 nodes run by 46 validator orgs. And the thing's running, and it ran for 2 months. And then on December 1st, the token listed on Binance and Huobi and Uniswap, and it started trading. And that was a week ago. And then pretty soon and so the network's up and running, functioning. There are new features being added that I think are critical for dApps to get even more value. And these features will keep being added. And I think there's another release later this month and another one in January. And you'll just start seeing all these dApps start coming on board when the next releases come through. But again, it had to be done in stages. We didn't want all the dApps to be on board right away. We wanted some stability. Mm-hmm. And then this next upgrade happens, and then and you'll start seeing these dApps come on board.
It's like a small snowball, right? If you start to progress and make steps, at some point it becomes very big and it just goes by itself.
Yes.
That as just Scale you just mentioned, it's just launched its mainnet a few months ago. It got recently listed on Binance and Huobi, and I've been trading it as well. The project is getting some traction, but in what way are you getting those developers to build the projects or the dApps on Scale rather than on Ethereum? What is unique that Scale consists of?
So here's the thing. Let's be really clear. We want them to build on Ethereum. If they build on Ethereum, they can connect to Scale. Okay? Mm-hmm. But Ethereum, and then so they build for Ethereum, and then they don't have to change anything. And a few lines of code, they can connect to a Scale chain. It's almost like they buy an extra piece of software. If let's say this is a normal IT group, they're like, okay, well we've got this server. Now let's purchase this other piece of software to augment this server so they both work better. Okay? And so they buy they work with Ethereum, they build on Ethereum, and then they can connect to Scale and they get all of this additional value. And so right now there's 70 companies that have signed up and signed on to the Scale Innovator Program. That gives them early access to test. It gives them access to grants so they can get up and running. And there's 30 more that are in the pipeline that are going to be closing soon, that are high on the pipeline. And then, then we've got to just convert all of them into active users when the next launches take place. And the reality is they're in many different stages of development, a lot of these companies. And the big ones that have, a lot of money are going to watch the small ones go first. Mm-hmm. And then, we see this as a 3 to 6 month process. This is a long time horizon here that we want to build Scale for the long run. And so we're going to just try to slowly get the dApps coming on board, and then hit this point where it's just growth mode. But I think the prudent and wise move is like slow and steady wins the race, and then push for real growth in like Q2 of next year.
That's actually something I've been thinking about during 2017, 2018. You've got those two different type of projects. one is focused on marketing and pushing the price up while they are not building. The other one is building a lot and not pushing on marketing. And I think that's the whole difference between certain projects. But I think, for instance, I'm not going to name some, but Verge has been doing really well on marketing. Some other projects have not been doing well. And if you combine those two and just gradually move forward, I think that's the balance that you're seeking of. And that's what you're trying to achieve. But if you're looking at those developers, they are building on Ethereum or they are using Scale. What do developers need to do to gain traction to their dApps on Scale or on Ethereum?
Yeah, you know what? One is we have to build better user experiences. And anybody who's out here, I would challenge all of you, like, go down, like, get smart as somebody who, if you're trading, if you're holding these assets. And we think of Scale, by the way, we don't think of anyone being an investor. It's actually a real utility token. And we want people to buy Scale tokens and stake them and add to network security. Okay, so that's our thing. And you know, we don't treat it as a security, it's a utility token. But I'd say for anybody who's looking at purchasing Scale or any of these, you know, anything, try to use a dApp. Pick one dApp, go to dApp Radar, pick one that's successful, and just try to use it. You will see that it's a lot harder. There's more friction using dApps than there is downloading something off the Apple, you know, iPhone store, Apple Store, or, you know, Android, Google Play Store. So, and what that means is we need to improve the user experience. Scale helps dramatically with that. So do these API-based wallets. So you see things like Portis and Taurus and these other API wallet solutions that make it really Fortmatic. They make it really easy to just kind of authenticate in and start using applications. Coinbase and the exchanges are trying to come up with, you know, their own wallet solutions, but wallets need to interact with the blockchain and take the complexity away for the end user. Wallets also need to help end users take money, take fiat, and convert it into crypto in the right way. They can use it easily for the applications. And we're starting to see that happen. And I think this year is going to be, you know, 2021 will be the lift year. And I got to be honest, I thought it was going to be 2020. And I think 2020 was very different than everyone expected.
Well, sure.
But this next year, I think, is going to be a real growth year.
Well, I was just about to ask what the future is for Scale. Indeed, like 2020 has been such a crazy year, but it put spotlight on cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, which is only a very good thing for the markets in general. So I think if we are passing through and looking back at 2020 and 10 years from now, it has been that year that we got that shift going, and maybe even a critical year. But let's talk about the future. What's in the pipeline for Scale from here on after the listings and the progress? You've got some traction right now. What do you see coming for 2021, or what are the plans for the project from here on?
Yeah, and I think a good corollary here is to talk about, like, you know, the type of project. And I think there's types of projects that we're really good at building, and then there's types of projects that are really good at marketing.
Yeah.
And when I say marketing to invest, to like buyers of tokens, right? Mm-hmm. To the trading community. And then there's other people like Scale. We've been very focused on building a product and marketing to developers and marketing to validators to run the network. And so what we need to do now is we need to communicate, and we're going to start communicating more to the rest of the world what Scale does to educate people. Again, not to, you know, try to drive trading, because you know, this is a utility, but to show. But when we go to people and we start really doing a lot of marketing, you will notice that we actually have something real to talk about. And I think when we think about the next, going back to your question, what does the next year have to unfold for Scale and other projects? Well, 2020 is a year right now of like extreme awareness and growth and hype. Mm-hmm. But we have, I would say, 3 to 6 months to show the world there's real traction, or crypto is going to plummet again. Okay. And so that's why we took this strategy. We said, let's build, because if there's not real traction to speak back to, if we don't have traditional journalists writing to say, look what's happening over in crypto, then we're going to see people pull out again. Okay. And that happened in 2017 because, you know, we had like Dentacoin and these things that were just worth billions of dollars, but they weren't doing anything, right?
Hmm.
And we need to make sure that after the growth that there's something stable there to maintain the lift. And that's what Scale's trying to do. So we are going to market and do all the stuff we need to do to drive awareness to everybody in the world, not just developers and validators. We're going to do that in a real serious way. But we want to be able to show people how the network really functions. And our goal too is we want to keep converting people over to say, I actually want to stake my tokens and get, right now you get 1.1% return a month on your tokens too, if you're going to lock them up for 2 months. And so over time, we'll see that grow and grow and the network grow. And, there's some things that are wise to buy for short term. And we see Scale as being something that, there's real long-term plans here. Me personally and the core team, we're in a 4-year vesting schedule for our tokens. And even though I've been here doing this 3 years, the first day of vesting was October 1st this year when the mainnet launched. So we've got a long horizon. We're just getting started. We'll probably go through numerous bull runs in this 4 years and numerous troughs. But, it's all about I think having keeping your eyes on the prize and really trying to win this battle of infrastructure. And then I think the message goes to people like you saw Chainlink. Chainlink had a lot of hype, but it wasn't until they started really showing they had real users and DeFi applications using them. And then what happened, people saw that, and then Chainlink obviously grew immensely in value.
Okay, well, like you have been saying that you also want to create awareness and you want to educate people. For me personally, it's already hard to understand the technology behind Scale. Let's say my mom and dad, I've been trying it for months, and it took me about 4 to 5 months before they actually understand Bitcoin, and that's just Bitcoin. How are you trying to, or how are you going to get those people into the markets as the mass is just unaware of what the potential of DeFi or cryptocurrency in itself are?
I mean, it's interesting. So you look at people that someone's like, oh yeah, I bought all of this stock in, in let's say Success Factors or something. Or I bought this Salesforce.com stock, and they're like, oh, right. What do you think about their marketing automation platform? Do you like the AI component to, lead optimization and funnel filtering? And then they're like, no, I don't know. But Salesforce, so they know the one line. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with Scale, I think people need to know, there's people who are analysts who go deep into the space and they really understand these things, and then they're influencers. But people, if I'm talking to my parents, you just have to use simple analogies. They need to know the 1 or 2 lines. And it's Ethereum is this main highway that has all these cars on it, and it's slow. What Scale does, it gives every single car its own lane that they can speed through. But the reality is you can only get on or off to where you want to go through the main highway. So you want to, let's say you're in one city, I'm in Amsterdam, and I'm trying to drive across the country. There's one main highway. Well, I have to get on the highway to get to the end place. But once I'm on the highway, I can get my own special lane and go 100 miles an hour. I can go 150 kilometers an hour on my lane. But when I need to get back, I need to pay to get a toll to get back to the main highway to get to where I want to go. And that's what Scale is. Scale gives every application, just like every car, their own highway. But you still always have to exit on and off the main road, which is Ethereum.
Well, I'm going to use that one if I have to explain anything to my parents or just someone who doesn't understand cryptocurrencies. Let's just talk about the general market from here on and the future of it. What do you see as the main driver for adoption from here for the cryptocurrency markets? We see that institutions are fully focused on buying Bitcoin as a sound money store of value solution, or will it be the awareness of DeFi, or will it actually go together? That's also a possibility.
Yeah, I think of these things, it's like a basket, right? There's going to be, I think of Bitcoin, and some people don't like this narrative, but I really think it is the store of value. And I think Bitcoin maximalists who don't like that, I think they need to look at the value of gold. Gold's like $9 trillion. If Bitcoin is future gold, that's really a good thing, okay? And I think it could be bigger than gold, okay? Bitcoin has its role. Now, then I think about the way money is transacting, those are going to be stable currencies, right? Stable coins will be the digital dollars that you buy a pizza with. I don't want to buy a pizza with Bitcoin, okay? I want to save my Bitcoin, not spend it. Then I think of DeFi, and I think about finance without a middleman. Smart contracts are the judge, the jury, and you know, they're the judge and the jury, and they determine what happens and where things go. And you don't need a brick and mortar bank. You don't need a legal contract. Literally, the contract helps people interact with each other with certain rules that lets them do financial activities. And in DeFi, we need to go, right now we have this circular crypto on crypto DeFi stuff. What we need to do is we need to get outside use cases where people are like, hey, I want to get a car. Oh, great, I can get a loan and a stable coin through the system that has all these game theoretical pieces on the back end to make my loan work, but I can get a stable loan at a lower rate than I can from the bank, because the bank has a marketing team. The bank has a profit motive. The bank has all these other things that they need to pay. And so we can provide cheaper, better, faster, more community-driven products through tokenized loans, right? And for normal things. And, you know, and mortgages will be, you know, the last really tough thing, because, you know, I don't see that happening anytime soon. But smaller loans and different financial structures, I think, will start coming into play in the real world. And then I think there's this other piece around Web3 that's also unique and separate. And Web3 also bunch in enterprise software. What we're seeing now is just recently, finally, these big companies and government entities are realizing they've ran all these pilot projects with private blockchains, and then they're like, why am I using a private blockchain? Like, why don't we just run this on a server if I just trust you, the service provider, to run the blockchain for me? And so they're saying, hey, if we really want trustlessness, let's put it on a public blockchain. Let's run it on the mainnet. Let's run it on Ethereum. Let's run it on Ethereum and Scale. And so you're going to start seeing real businesses and real use cases where they need blockchain come into play. And then you also see hybrid models where you see like Reddit. They're like, hey, we're launching a token and we're going to tokenize this component of our product. And they give up power and control of that token because it's open source and community owned then, but they get growth from it, okay? And so, and that's, you know, there's like 20 other use cases I could talk about, but you're going to start seeing these things come into play in the next year. And I'm more excited than ever about blockchain and crypto. And I just think that, you know, the people of like, you know, our parents' generation, people roughly in this, category of like being, 20 to 40 years old, a lot of people in this category, like everyone's parents and grandparents got really wealthy because they got real estate. And now for people our age, real estate's incredibly expensive, okay? And in a way, I think crypto as a whole is like the next real estate. Like it's about, getting access into these things that aren't, securities. You're actually buying pieces of property. You're buying pieces of software that don't just have ownership value, they actually have functional value. And they serve purposes and you can do things with them. And I do think that the people that are getting in early as a whole are going to be like this generational group that bought real estate in like California or, Amsterdam or these other places where now it's like you're 30 years old and you're like, man, I need to buy a home. Like this is insanely expensive. And it wasn't like that for people of our parents and grandparents' generation.
It's funny. I just got my new home here, and actually got it from a 68-year-old who just left after living here for 30 years and made a lot of money out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just the whole point of Amsterdam nowadays. But as I'm also here with the trading community, and I want to finish off with a question regarding that specific topic. And I know you're an investor in the cryptocurrency market as well. Where do you see the prices of Ethereum and Bitcoin head to in 2021? Just speculating wise, nothing fundamental, just to finish off this conversation.
Yeah, you know what? I have my ideas. So as a rule, just like for compliance, I try not to talk about prices, and I try to talk about function of software. My job is to be an educator. When we think about Scale, I don't want to advise anybody to buy Scale. my job is just to educate people on what it does as its utility, and then everybody has to make their own decision. So when I think about Ethereum and Bitcoin, let me tell you, like we are in the early stages of growth. And as a trader, I actually have no good advice for you because it'll probably go up and down. So if you want to optimize flows, there's going to be a lot of volatility. But for a holder, they're phenomenal holds, okay? You think of the growth opportunity over the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, or 1 year. And I don't know what's going to happen over 1 year, right? It could be a lot down, but if you think about 2 years and 3 years, like the trend line is going to move up. All the data points are there for growth. And, you know, but hey, there's people that are really brilliant when it comes to trading mechanics, and they'll probably make a lot of money during the volatility. Myself, I'm building all the time. But I'll tell you, I think about things that are valuable to hold and own, and I'm incredibly excited about both of those.
Yeah, and I think if you combine the fundamental aspect of our markets and the pricing or the undervaluation of the markets, and you combine those two, I think probably ETH is one of the best assets to buy at this point with what it could be achieving in the coming years. And that's why I think it's quite undervalued as well. All right, thank you very much for being here, Jack.
And I'll give you one more data point on ETH. So if you use any gas intensive mainnet applications, you'll see that they're incredibly expensive right now to use. And so the more expensive ETH gets, so the gas fees are related to the price of Ethereum, just for everyone to know. So when I pay in gas, I'm actually, you know, I'm paying units of gas, but the units are always in relation to, you know, the value of the units is related to the value of each ETH. And so if ETH gets really expensive, at a certain point, it like will restrict its own growth, and its growth becomes a damaging factor, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why Scale and these other layer twos are growing, because if we can remove that component, ETH can just keep growing in value, which means more security for Ethereum in general, because they're just more anchored in. It's just way too costly to attack the network. But we need to have that security component, but also not restrict the functionality. And that's why Scale is building Scale, is if we can take that growth cap off of Ethereum and then just let ETH go as expensive as possible, it adds value to the security of the Ethereum mainnet, especially when we move to a proof of stake environment. And so again, I'm not like qualified to give advice on ups and downs, but long-term, really, really excited as, you know, these components come together.
Well, it would be great if in the future we won't be having any of these expensive gas fees like we've experienced during the summer when all DeFi was blowing up, right? The gas fees just exploded out of nowhere because of the usage. It would be great if Scale is providing a solution for any of those issues.
That's why we're here.
Well, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for being my first guest. It was a pleasure having you on and giving us insights about Scale. Where can we find the project? Is there any place where we can actually
easiest place, if you go to scale.network, that's a website that'll guide you to the Telegram group, that'll guide you to Discord, that'll guide you to Twitter. You can go at Jack O'Halloran and find me on Twitter, at SKALE Network on Twitter. But the website is a really great link to learning materials, to social groups, and hey, the community is still early, and I think there's, you know, please come join if you're interested, and we'd be glad to welcome you.
Well, thank you very much. I'm sure some people will try to find the Scale and join the group as soon as possible. Thanks for being here. It was wonderful. Thanks everyone for watching as well, and don't forget to subscribe here beneath on the YouTube channel so to stay tuned. Thanks for being here, Jack.
Thank you.